Tonight at the July Mixer, historically, we have the Hal Schell Award from Bay Delta Yachtsman, and Ty will tell you a little bit about that.
Thanks everybody for coming out. I realize COVID has put the dampers on a lot of different things, but the brave of us are out here to enjoy, and thank you for showing up for the Chamber Mixer, but more so, thanks for being here for Hal's Award. This is the 14th year of the Hal Schell Award, so obviously Hal hasn't been with us in the same amount of years. Being at Mandeville this year, speaking to a couple people out there that brought up some Hal stories, so that was kind of neat. In our group this evening, we have Tracy Glaves, who was last year's Hal Schell Award recipient.
Hey, Tracy!
And because that list is now longer than two people, I have to actually read it. But Tracy Glaves, Barbara, who? There you go. That's who. The Deke family, Kurt Page, Jay Sorensen, who, as most of you probably already know, is now fishing with the big guy in the sky. Sad to lose Jay. Kip Korth, Bill Corp, our very own Bill Wells, Chris Lordson, who messaged me on his way up here saying that he wasn't ready for the crowd yet, even though he drove to Isleton. He turned around, I guess, and went back. Dave and Linda Brininger, Ken Scheidigger, Joe Cicchini, and Dave Smith was our first original Hal Schell Award recipient. So with no further ado, I will let Bill introduce this year's award recipient. Thank you again for all coming.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ty. So this year's award winner was born in 1920, so he's been around been around for a while, couple centuries. So very famous company, designed many yachts. Him and his brothers took over the company back in the 1940s, but they've designed Westlake, Ahalani, Seagal, Miss 102. So many of the famous yachts you still see cruising around the Delta. Dick Stevens is the recipient. He's unable to come today. He's 100 years old, coming up in a month or two on September 15th. Okay, somebody I'll get that right. And the whole Stevens family has been such a huge influence in the Delta and the Stockton area. They're icons around the world. Stevens yachts literally been built for people in the Mid-East. One of my favorite, I have a Fender guitar. He's built several boats for Leo Fender, the guy that invented the Fender Stratocaster, invented the Telecaster. So we're very honored. I've met him several times myself, and like one of the most humble, good people you could ever imagine. Unfortunately, we invited the family to come. Dick obviously couldn't come, and we thought maybe his daughters would be able to make it, but they said they couldn't do it. They were kind of worried if, whatever they might contract here would be carried over. So Dick, we wanted him to last as long as possible. Anyway, we found a gentleman who's part of the Portuguese branch of the Stevens family, Mr. Rusty Arias. So he said he would accept the award on...
Hey, Rusty!
Well, first of all, I think we can all stipulate that winters would be a whole lot longer in the Delta if it wasn't for Commodore Wells. So let's give Bill Wells a big hand. Thanks for all you do, Bill, with the Delta Chamber. Anyway, Bill had asked me to call the Stevens family and let them know, and they were really excited. They were very familiar with Hal Schell's work and how much he loved the Delta. And there's no question that Hal and Dick Stevens had at least that in common. They both loved the Delta and contributed significantly to its reputation and its success. And originally I thought the girls would come, but upon reflection on the invitation, they spend a lot of time caring for their elder parents. Donna, who, I don't know how old Donna is, and I'm not gonna ask. And then Dick's 99, soon to be 100, and he's kind of had his ups and downs, so they just didn't think it was worth the risk, and they asked me if I would come here and accept on behalf of them. I said I would do that, and I called them on the way here, and I said, what would you like me to emphasize? They said that Dick is honored to accept it on behalf of his brother Theodore, his brother Bear, and their families, his father and his uncle, and the hundreds of workers, artisans and craftsmen who worked at Stevens Brothers. And I don't know how familiar all of you are with the history of Stevens Brothers, but you know, they participated and helped us win 4 wars: World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. They built 16 or 1700 boats. The biggest boats they ever built were the minesweepers, the 144-foot minesweepers, which had to be all wood. And you know, if you look at the recent history, when I say recent, the last 100 years of California's history and the people who built this state, whether they be the Rosecrans or the Bechtels or the Swigs from the Fairmont Hotel chain, more than likely they owned a Stevens. And when you go back and look at the provenance of these marvelous boats, I mean, it is like looking at a list of people who contributed mightily to the state of California and made it what it is, today. Dick mentioned Leo Fender. Leo Fender owns 6 Stevens boats, all called Aquafin, all 6 of them. Most of them were sports fishers. Dick was fond of saying that he worked with 2 geniuses in his life. One was Leo Fender of Fender Guitar, and the other one was Classy Cummins of Cummins Motor Company. I'm sure that they were geniuses, but I'm sure when they were together, they realized that they were working with a genius also. Dick left the Naval Academy in 1947. The first boat that he worked on when he got back to Stevens Brothers was a boat called Tish Tab. Kind of a strange name for a boat. But you know, there's always a story behind every one of these marvelous vessels. In this particular case, it was commissioned by the Bowie brothers of Buttonwillow, California. How many of you know where Buttonwillow is? You know, out by Bakersfield. It gets hot as hell there. They were cotton farmers. And they bought a piece of land, and on the land they discovered a cave that was full of bat shit. And I guess that was valuable in those days. Bat shit was used as fertilizer, and they found all this value in this fertilizer, sold it, and took their winnings and bought a Stevens boat. And they couldn't name it bat shit. They wanted to, but the family was all protesting. Their wives were upset, refusing to ride on it. So they Tish Tab is bat shit spelled backwards. I saw the boat, spent some time with the current owner. It's now called Enchantress, which, you know, isn't nearly as exciting or controversial. Yeah, exactly. 1947, but it's still there, still chugging along, just like most Stevens boats are. You know, they were built so well that they've held up. And many of them are still out there, still plying the waters of the Delta. Dick had a marvelous career. I've had been the beneficiary of many discussions and comments with him about how his mother would sew all the curtains in all the boats. Some of you are familiar with a boat called Contessa. Well, Contessa has the only picnic box that's mounted on the front of a boat. And I said, Dick, how many of these did you do? Because I always thought that picnic box was pretty cool. And he said, we did 1. I said, only 1? I said, why? He said, because the owner wanted it. And that's what they did. They built handmade boats that the owners wanted. And you know, it was Trumpy on the East Coast, and it was Stevens on the West Coast. But to me, I hope there are no Trumpy owners here, but Trumpies are a little clunky. You know, they're at least as well made. But they're a little clunky, and when you see a Stevens, it's like seeing a Riva. It just jumps out at you. It pops. It's got that charisma, and that's Dick Stevens. And I hope all of you, in your busy schedules, will take time. I know that Bill's been working tirelessly on the Stevens Rendezvous, which will be at Village West on the 11th, 12th, and 13th. All the Stevens boats that we can put together are going to be there, and we're going to serenade Dick on our way out of town. So that's something that we're really looking forward to. So again, on behalf of the Stevens family, they had great respect for Hal Schell and his work, and most importantly, his love for the Delta. Like Hal Schell, you know, Dick Stevens, loved the Delta and everything about it, and wanted to contribute to it in his life work in any way he could. Thank you very much.
Wait, one more there. There we go.
Perfect.
Good.
There you go, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll get this too. Isn't that something? Wow. Pretty cool. Huh?
Okay. Close up. There we go.
How's that?
Get myself out of the picture. Perfect.
Wait, one more, Rusty.
29.
Beautiful.
Hey, thank you. All right. Thank you.
There you are.
Thank you.
Great work, Rusty. Thank you, man.
Thank you.